Hello, you're welcome to the season finale of the Chuchu Blema Sunday podcast with me, Kabuki Akumi, aka Buki. It's been a great season, and I've had so much fun sharing these folk tales and historical profiles and events with you. Creating this podcast is something I've been wanting to do for years, and to actually put it together and put it out has been magical and very affirming. I'm looking forward to getting the news about this first season out during our break, but also researching more to bring to you for the second season. I hope I've been able to inform and entertain you, and that you've enjoyed listening to the pod as much as I have enjoyed making it. For our last episode this season, we're going to be talking about the origins of kente. We'll talk about kente and also fugu fabric from the northern region in Ghana. Now, if you're Ghanaian, you probably know about the debate on whether kente was created by the Eves or Ashantis. Let's start off with the origins of loom weaving, then we'll get to that. The origins of loom weaving. We evolved from shrouding ourselves in leaves, animal skins, fur, and barks, and began wearing woven cloth garments. Weaving on the loom is a technique invented by divergent societies around the world for thousands of years. Though evidence suggests Africans weaved with plant fibers such as raffia somewhere between 5000 and 4000 BC, the horizontal loom and cotton weaving was introduced at some point during the first millennium. The first weaving looms are said to have been developed in Egypt and Mesopotamia. These early looms were simple wooden frames that allowed weavers to create more complex patterns and designs. The Syrian Semitic people from the northeast taught Fulani tribespeople known as the Puels. They started working with wool first, and the more skilled they became at weaving, progressed to using cotton fiber, a technique they learned from the Arabs. The loom and cotton production spread through Western Africa to the Tukulors and the Wolofs of Senegal, then the Mande people of Sudan, and soon reached the Bambara, Dogon, and other tribes. So, this is how weaving on the loom originated. Before we get into who created kente, let's talk about how it's made. Kente is woven on a horizontal strip loom, which produces a narrow band of cloth about 4 inches wide. Several of these strips are carefully arranged and hand sewn together to create the desired size of cloth. Weaving involves the crossing of a row of parallel threads called the warp and another row called the weft. The warp threads run vertically and the weft threads run horizontally. A horizontal loom, constructed with wood, consists of a set of two, four, or six heddles, which are the loops for holding thread, and are also used for separating and guiding the warp threads. These are attached to foot pedals called treadles, with pulleys that have spools of thread inserted in them. The pulleys can be used to move the warp threads apart. As the weaver divides the warp threads, they use a small wooden device carrying a bobbin or a small spool of thread called a shuttle to insert the weft threads between them. These various parts of the loom, like the motifs in the cloth, all have a symbolic significance and are accorded a great deal of respect. By alternating colors in the warp and weft, a weaver can create complex patterns, which in kente cloth are valued for both their visual effect and their symbolism. Patterns can exist vertically in the warp or horizontally in the weft, or both. I've divided the origins into three accounts, which is the Eves, Ashantis, and the Northerners. We'll start with the Eves. K and te are words in Ewe that describe the alternating movements when operating the loom. In the weaving process, you open the weft, which makes the sound K, then pass and pull the waft through it and press, which makes the sound te. Ewe weaving is said to go back to the 16th century when weavers were among the migrants who resettled in Ghana from the Benin Republic and Western Nigeria. The earliest description of weaving among the southern Ewe was from a report in 1718 by a Dutch West Indian Company official during his visit to Quetta. The trail of the origins of kente lead back to the town of Nochi, now located in modern-day Togo. The Ewes have a long-standing tradition of weaving. Many techniques and patterns have been passed down for centuries. Afevo means home cloth, while asivo means market cloth. The difference between the two is though afevo can be sold in the market, it is ordered at home, used locally, and made with quality yarn, which means its standard is always protected. Asivo is anything thrown into the market with little attention to quality and design. One particularly interesting and distinctive type of Ewe cloth, sometimes called adanudo, features a rich variety of weft float inlaid pictures, often on a plain silk, rayon, or cotton background. Among the subjects depicted on these cloths are animals such as cows, sheep, and horses, human figures, ceremonial stools, hats, trees and flowers, and household objects such as dining forks. In the 1940s, some cloths were made to include written text. In these modern times, Clicquot is one of the towns in the Volta region known for weaving. Adu Anu Le Clicquot, translated as Clicquot Icon, is a woven encyclopedia of about 200 traditional and modern designs of Adanukete. The different symbols tell stories of their own of past occurrences and sometimes things to come in the future. So, how did this long-standing battle between the Eves and Ashanti over who started the weaving of kente begin? Historical accounts suggest that from 1868 to 1872, the Akwamu went to war with all Ewe people except the Alo. The Asantis came to support the Akwamus because they were their allies. Although the Eves won the war, it was an avenue for the Asantis to experience and assimilate fragments of Ewe culture, including the kete cloth, which was known then as Agbamevo. So the Ashantis were exposed to this cloth during those periods of trade and conflict, thus creating the distinctive Ashanti kente. And while the Ashanti have undeniably popularized kente on a global scale, the foundational techniques and styles can be traced back to the Ewe weavers of Nochi. And with that, we'll move on to Ashanti kente. With Ashanti kente, there's a story of how kente cloth weaving came into being. It goes like this. Two young men, Otakrabine and his friend Kweku Ameyao, learned the art of weaving by observing a spider weaving its web. One night, the two went out to the forest to check their traps, and they were amazed by a beautiful spider's web, whose many unique designs sparkled in the moonlight. The spider, named Anansi, offered to show the men how to weave such designs in exchange for a few favors. After completing the favors and learning how to weave the designs with a single thread, the men returned home to Bonre, and their discovery was soon reported to Asantehene Osei who was the first ruler of the Asante kingdom. The Asantehene adopted their creation, named Kente, as a royal cloth reserved for special occasions, and Bonre became the leading Kente weaving center for the Asantehene and his court. So that's the story. Let's get into the documented history. The word kente is derived from the tree word kenten, which means basket. Originally, the use of kente was reserved for Ashanti royalty and limited to special, social, and sacred functions. Even as production has increased and kente has become more accessible to those outside the royal court, it continues to be associated with wealth, high social status, and cultural sophistication. Kente is also found in Ashanti shrines to the deities or abosom as a mark of their spiritual power. There are over 350 patterns of kente cloth. Each has a name, as does each cloth in its entirety. Names are sometimes given by weavers who obtain them through dreams or during contemplative moments when they are said to be in communion with the spiritual world. Alternatively, chiefs and elders may ascribe names to cloths that they specially commission. Some pattern names include Obi Inche Obi Kwaimusi, to err is human, Sika Fremoja, which means money attracts blood relations, and Sika Futuro, which means gold dust. Names can be inspired by historical events, proverbs, philosophical concepts, oral literature, moral values, human and animal behavior, individual achievements, or even individuals in pop culture. In the past, when purchasing a cloth, the aesthetic and social appeal of the cloth was as important as, or sometimes even more important than, its visual pattern or color. Each of the colors of the intricate weave have specific meanings. The color red used in kente represents the blood of those who died. Green symbolizes the country's mineral wealth. Blue is for peace, love, and harmony. Purple or maroon represents Mother Earth's healing, femininity, and protection from evil. White symbolizes purity, cleansing rites, and festive occasions. Black represents spiritual awareness and the union of great ancestors who paved the way for future generations. Kente design consists of a symbol of elements woven in kente cloth. Some designs are the Nyankati Nyankatre, meaning serpent's head, in Safwa, meaning keys, in Chimchim, meaning zigzag, and Akuma, meaning axe, all falling under the Abro Ahabain pattern. Adinkra symbols are also used to design the cloth. Traditionally, there were differences in how kente is worn by men and women. Men wore one piece wrapped around the body, leaving the right shoulder uncovered, while women wore either one large piece or a combination of two or three pieces of varying sizes. Age, marital status, and social standing could determine the size and design of the cloth an individual would wear. For the longest time, only men were allowed to weave kente, though the women were allowed to pick the cotton and spin the thread. This was mainly done by women who had reached menopause, the myth being that women would become barren if they were to weave the cloth. This thankfully has changed. There were quite a few superstitions I'll get into at the end of the podcast. Present day use of kente sees it no longer only for the privilege of royalty. Anyone who can afford it can buy kente. The old tradition of not cutting the cloth no longer exists, and it is now sewn in dresses, traditional bridal wear outfits, shirts, shoes, graduation stoles, sashes, scarves, hats, and bags. Both Ewe and Ashanti kente are used for these purposes. Now, a quick sidebar before we get to the fugu material. The Ewa weavers also produce many cloths, where, as with Ashanti Kente, the main design feature is symmetrical arranged blocks of weft float designs and weft face stripes across the strips. However, despite their superficial similarity, these cloths can generally be distinguished from Ashanti weaving by the inclusion of figurative designs and by the use of a technique which involves plying together two colors of weft thread before weaving a band, creating a kind of speckled effect. Other weavers also produce more simple but striking cloths using just indigo blue and white stripes and checks, perhaps the legacy of older weaving styles practiced before they came into contact with the Ashanti. Now let's talk about fugu fabric from the northern region. Fugu is traditionally made from the hand loom strips comprising of a blend of dyed and undyed cotton yarns. It is woven in strips, which are then sewn together to make a full cloth and usually has stripes as a design pattern. It is commonly used to make a traditional attire known as batakari or smock. Although some refer to it as Northern Kente, Fugu carries its own identity as the weaving process and patterns are different from Kente. Some variations showcase additional artistic elements, such as embroidery adorning the neckline. Since it was introduced into Gabon during the reign of the Ya Na Zagina, Fugu has evolved from royal wear on communal occasions to casual and official wear to suit many situations in life. Fugu has fascinating color stripes arranged in a rhythmic order. The beauty of it is seen when men do the damba dance, with the edge of the dress going round in circles. Some say the Tang people of the Karaga district were original weavers who migrated to Pantinga village in the Gushegu district of the northern region. The craft beginning as woven strips of fabric used to cover their naked bodies. Others maintain that part of the Musi people in Burkina Faso who migrated to settle in northern Ghana originated the craft. It is said that before the migration of the Musis, they were engaged in a barter trade system from the Upper Volta to the north in the trade exportation of hand woven fabrics in parts of West Africa. So we see the connection. The Mosi traders and settlers were the probable first custodians of the Fugu weaving craft. The name Fugu is a translation from the Musi word for cloth. Hand spun yarns were traditionally used, but these days machine spun yarns are used in the production of the fabric. Weavers used plied yarns or combined two or more strands to construct the fabric in order to achieve the fuzzy and weighty effect hand spun yarns produce, to add weight to the fabric and evenness similar to the hand spun yarns. With that being said, most Savannah North indigents prefer and consider fugu woven with hand-spun yarns to be unique and authentic. In the North, fugu production centers are among the following ethnic groups: the Musi, Kokomba, Dagomba, Maprusi, Lobi, and Gonja. Apart from the yarn production mechanism and the fugu fabric production done on traditional looms, the sewing can be purely hand sewn, machine sewn, or a combination of both. A fugu could therefore be classified as hand sewn, machine sewn, or a combination of hand and machine. It could also be classified according to purpose. The elegance of a cut and the sartorial design orientation is another way of classifying the material, taking into consideration the appearance and presentation style like the embroidery, decorations, design patterns, and matching accessories. Some fugu classifications include yanchi or danchi, which is the sleeveless fugu, bingma bore, which is a fugu with sleeves, Kutu, which is a fugu with wide and large sleeves. Sadan Yibu, which means leaving early morning. Yebli, which is for title holders. And Barigu, which is the chief's fugu used during his enskinment. Though the fabric is generally heavy, fugu is sewn as a loose garment which allows for air to flow through so it's not a hassle to wear in hot weather. Smock caps are an accompanying accessory that is worn to complement the beauty of the wearer and also have metaphorical meanings. The caps are worn in four major distinctive styles: in a stiff standing position, the oblique postures either towards the right or left, skewed towards the front or skewed towards the back of the head. Each of the four styles has a symbolic meaning. The stiff and erect positioning of the cap means supremacy, and the oblique style towards the right or left signifies peace. The frontal skew denotes humility or servitude, while the backward skew depicts strength or spiritual powers. Colors generally seen in fugu fabrics are formed by the warp pattern of the cloth. The beauty of fugu can depend on the color distribution and compactness of the weave, but it is usually marked by its significance, purpose, or function. Its beauty is not always considered in terms of physical qualities, such as the colors used in weaving the fugu. Women in the north have always weaved fugu. Present day, a lot of women go into the business, which proves as sustainable income for them. We have a copyright law, which is like Ghana's 2005 Copyright Act, which is supposed to protect Ghana's folklore, our kente, our handicraft symbols. but the law only applies to goods sold in Ghana, which means that anyone can take the designs and print and sell them outside of Ghana. So there isn't very much protection on it being imitated and used. And I doubt that, other than very few, when I was doing this research, I saw like a few people who gave like, who really delve into the stories of the weavers and stuff. I think that the weavers are not given as much credit as they deserve. And it would be nice to be able to see Ghana get some sort of remuneration for the use of kente outside of Ghana in a way that would go back to the weavers. Another thing that stood out to me is a story from Greek mythology about a lady called Arachne. She's attributed with the invention of linen and nets, and her son is said to have invented the use of the spindle to manufacture wool. The story centers itself around Arachne boasting about her abilities, about being better than Athena, and refusing to give Athena credit as the reason she was good as she was. Athena was a goddess who would have given Arachne her skill in the first place, just to keep it short. It's a much longer story about like power imbalance and stuff, but I want to keep it as short as possible. So basically, Arachne challenges Athena to a weaving contest, and when she wins, Athena gets upset that she's won and beats her. And Arachne is so embarrassed that she hangs herself. When she hangs herself, Athena feels sorry for her and turns her into a spider. Now, the reason why I'm bringing this up is I find it a very interesting theme that Akans attributes their weaving skills to Anansi, a spider, and the story about Arachne being turned into a spider as well. It seems as though spiders are a likely inspiration for weaving as a whole for humans. Some of the superstitions that the Ashantis held for kente weaving back in the day. So, women were not allowed to be weavers. We've already talked about that. No weaving was allowed to be completed on a Friday because that was the day that Otakrabine set up his very first loom. So I guess it was like as a show of respect to him. Women were not allowed to touch the loom when they were on their period. I mean, they weren't even allowed to address their husbands directly when they were on their period. Where did it all stem from? And I'm going to investigate it very, very deeply. Like I want to actually hear, and this is something that I need to really deep dive into so that I can understand where all of these, where this myth came from that women on their period. Because I mean, my own deduction is how powerful women are on their period, right? And I know that that is one of the or I don't know if I can call it a bone of contention, but I think that that's one of the reasons that's given. It's like you're so powerful that it's like you're challenging the gods, right? We know it's misogyny. That one there, I mean, obviously, that's an obvious answer, right? But I want to get down to like the like who was the first person who said it and who agreed. You know what I mean? Like I want to know on I want to be educated about it. Like I want to know where it first happened, why it first happened, and why everybody agreed. So yeah, it was also believed that old kente loom. It was also believed that an old kente loom must not be burned or broken up. If the loom is broken by mistake, a fowl needed to be sacrificed. If a weaver committed adultery with another weaver's wife, a sheep had to be sacrificed to the loom and another on ancestral stools. So these are some of the beliefs that governed our kente weavers from Bonre back in the day. I think that what it was is that they just really had a lot of respect for what they were doing. They just had a lot of respect for what they were doing. The only thing that I don't understand is why women were excluded. But I mean, yeah. What am I talking about? It was a time, it was signs of the times. It was a time, I guess. I'm not gonna rant about it, even though I want to. I want to rant so bad, but I'm gonna leave it and say that we have come to the end of season 1 of the Choo Choo Blema Sunny African Folk Tales and History podcast. I've had a blast. Thank you to everyone who listened, commented, subscribed, and participated in this journey with me. We will be back with the second season, and I will announce that through my socials. So you can follow us on Instagram and TikTok at TBS Daily underscore AFT. And you can still email us at chuchublemasani at gmail.com with any other versions of the stories you hear on here or just any other thoughts you have. You can send in your own original short stories, and I will still feature them on the pod for the next season. Thank you again for tuning in. I love you all. Mwah, mwah, mwah. Today's show was produced, researched, written, and read by me, Kabuki Akumi. Show music is by Andre Ayete. Thank you for listening, and until next season, tree blow. Take it easy. This has been the Choo Choo Blema Sunny podcast, sharing truly African stories.